Hi everybody, I'm Miss Alene and you are joining us for Kids Corner, and we're at Robinwood Lane Elementary School today with the 4th grade class. And today we are going to be talking about prehistoric dogs, funny dogs, and fossils. And then we've got a fun fossil project. So stay tuned, and this is Armstrong Cable, channels 20 and 100. So, we're going to talk about prehistoric times and how people have come to the conclusion that dogs kind of became man's best friend, so to speak, and became our pets as opposed to just wild animals. And it's funny how everything that ran around in nature didn't necessarily make it into the "that's our pet" category, isn't it? But dogs are kind of special. Can anybody tell me something that's special about dogs and what they can do in particular that kind of make them good pets? How about you?
Some dogs could protect you.
Excellent. And in our prehistoric dog story, we're going to talk about how dogs can protect you. And I think, does anybody think it was maybe dangerous in those times where everything wasn't really civilized and there weren't buildings and houses and there were kind of huge wild prehistoric animals running around that could eat you? So in that transition of time between dogs, where they used to be ancestors of dogs, becoming dogs that became our pets and our friends, they might have come in handy in protecting people as people began to find these dogs or animals that became what we know as dogs to be a pet. What about you? Can you tell me something else that a dog can do that makes them a good pet?
They could help people get around.
They can help people get around. Now we've got lots of different ways that dogs have come to be special pets that help people in lots of special ways. Does anyone know one of those special ways that a dog can help people get around? How about you?
One person can see, the dog helps them get around.
Absolutely, and they're called seeing eye dogs and helper dogs. And they help lots of people with lots of challenges and things that they need help with. How about you in the back?
Smelling out things like a track or something.
Absolutely. They can, if somebody got lost even, dogs can be our friends and help us find lost things and lost people even sometimes. How about you?
They have good smell, so they can smell bombs.
Absolutely. They have excellent sense of smell. And that's another thing that we will talk about in our prehistoric dog story. And let's talk about our second story, because our second story is just kind of fun. It kind of goes to the extreme of talking about where dogs became pets and things like that. And this is just kind of a silly, funny, really, I think, unrealistic story, but maybe dogs really think this way. So this story is called "I'm My Own Dog." And it's by David Ezra Stein. I am my own dog. Nobody owns me. I own myself. I work like a dog all day. When I get home, I fetch my own slippers. I curl up at my own feet. Sometimes, if I'm not comfortable, I tell myself to roll over. And I do. If someone told me sit, I wouldn't do it. Even if they said, "I'll give you a bone." He's pretty opinionated, huh? Sometimes I throw a stick, then I go get it. It's fun. Every morning when I look in the mirror, I lick my own face because I am so happy to see me. I say, "Good dog. I am a good dog." Then I give myself a good scratch. But there's this one spot that I can't reach. Anybody ever have that spot in the middle of your back that you just can't reach? Right in the middle of my back, kind of like us. One time, it got so bad, I let someone scratch it. The little guy followed me home. I felt sorry for him. Anybody ever had a puppy or a kitten try to follow you home? Kind of funny, huh? So I got a leash. How else am I supposed to lead him around? That's kind of funny, huh? "Come on," I say. "Come on, boy. I'll take you to the park." I like showing him things. "Look, look, that is a squirrel," I say. I taught him the stick game. I have him throw. I don't know if he understands all my commands yet, but he's learning. "Sit, sit, good boy." Some folks say they're not worth the trouble. You can't keep them from yapping. Anybody got a dog that barks a lot? So if a dog were in the opposite role of a human and they thought that we were the pets, I bet they would think we were yapping a lot when we talk, huh? And you always have to clean up after them. But I've grown attached to the little fella. Between you and me, I'm his best friend. And that's the end. Anybody like that story? I like it too. The first time I read it, I just couldn't stop laughing. What if our dogs kind of thought that that was how things were? Be kind of interesting, wouldn't it? Is it a lot of work to take care of the dogs?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I would think so. Anybody else have a dog? Me too. I have two of them. I have one that's really, really big. He started off about this small, and now he's the size of a small horse. And then I have another one who's his little buddy, and he's about yay big and about yay long. And they're very, very cute together. They love each other, and we love them both. Do you guys know what family of mammal that the dog's animal belongs to?
Mammal?
Yep, they are mammals. They are actually descendants of wolves, but they belong to the canids and canine family. Anybody ever heard those words before? Yeah. So as you said, they belong to the descendants of wolves, and the first ones that we think were domestic, which means we made them our pets and they allowed us to make them their pets, were probably gray wolves, and they were in probably Europe or Asia. Anybody know what a fossil is? Can you in the back tell me what a fossil is?
Like a skeleton.
It is bones, skeletons, plants, shells, all of those living organisms that actually get stuck in sediment, which is layers of sand and rock layer, and they make what's kind of like an indention in them. And that indention stays there. And sometimes when you're digging or when rocks fall loose from mountains or different areas, we find fossils. Does anybody know that in Ohio we have a state fossil? Our state fossil is isotlus. It's called isotlus. And it is a trilobite. And it kind of looks like an armadillo shell when you see it in a fossil, but it's very small. And they're pretty cool. So when you guys get a chance, maybe look them up, okay? All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about prehistoric dogs now. And in this story, if you look along the sides of the pages, you'll see different pictures of some fossils. And you'll also notice that on the dog that we're talking about in this story, he's wearing a fossil. This story is called The First Dog, and it is written and illustrated by Jan Brett. Long ago, in the great days of the Pleistocene, Kip the cave boy bounded down the trail on his way home. He avoided the aurochs, the cave bears, and the megasaurus. He evaded the woolly rhinoceros, the wild horse, and the mighty mammoth. But he was getting tired and hungry, and he was still a long way from home. Suddenly, up popped a paleo wolf. Looking for leftovers, Wolf's nose began to twitch and sniff. He sniffed to the left, and he sniffed to the right. "What are you doing?" teased Kip. "What can you smell in this emptiness?" Paleo Wolf held his snout high in the air. With his keen nose, he could smell a rain cloud across the valley, the track of a tiny toad, the pelt of a prying pachyderm. But most of all, he could smell roasted, woolly rhino. He gave a hungry whine. Anybody have dogs that sometimes whine when they get hungry? Me too. "Pooh," said Kip. "I can't smell anything but my dinner, and it's all for me." And he turned his back on the wolf. But Paleo Wolf had already hurried away, and when Kip saw the reason why, he was just able to get away in time. Why do you think the dog ran away? How about you?
So he wouldn't get hurt.
That's right. He was running away so that he wouldn't get hurt. And that kind of was a warning for Kip. Soon Kip was back on the homeward trail. He walked on until he spied a cave. It was a fine place to stop and rest. He thought about another rhino rib, still crackly and crunchy from the fire. Up popped Paleo Wolf, looking for leftovers. Wolf's ears began to turn and dip. He listened to the left and he listened to the right. "What are you doing?" mocked Kip, taking a big bite. "What can you hear in this silence?" You think maybe Paleo Wolf could hear things that Kip couldn't? I do too. Wolf cocked his head. With his fine canine ears, he could hear a fish rise in the river, a leaf fall, a soft pant, pant, pant of a cave bear, and most of all, he could hear the snap of woolly rhino bones, still crisp from the fire, and he gave a pleading howl. "Pooh," said Kip. "I can't hear anything except my teeth crunching on these very tasty bones." And he threw a clump of moss at Paleo Wolf. He's trying to get rid of him, huh? He didn't want to share. But Paleo Wolf had already hurried away, and when Kip saw the reason why, he was just able to get away in time. Why do you think Paleo Wolf ran away?
Because he heard something coming.
He heard something coming, so again, he warned Kip by running from the danger. Soon Kip was back on the homeward trail. More footsore and weary than ever, he trudged on and on until he saw a big tree. It was just the place to stop and rest. He climbed the tree and reached for a woolly rhino rib, still pearly and greasy from the fire. Up popped Paleo Wolf looking for leftover. Wolf's eyes began to sparkle and dance. He looked to the left and he looked to the right. "What are you doing?" jeered Kip. "What can you see in this darkness?" Wolf's eyes glowed. With his sharp eyes, he could see the shimmer of a distant dewdrop, a mouse scurrying far away, a feline sleeping high above, but most of all, he could see the pearly, greasy morsels of rhino bone shining in the moonlight, and he licked his chops. "Pooh," said Kip. "I can't see anything except, of course, my roasted, toasted, crispy, crunchy, pearly, greasy, woolly rhino rib. And you won't be tasting that because I want it all to myself." Then Kip yelled, "Shoo!" as loud as he could. The yell resounded up and down the tree. It woke every living thing around. Instantly, Paleo Wolf's nose wrinkled and his ears went back. What does it mean when a dog's ears go back?
It's mad.
It's mad or it's scared. His eyes narrowed and his tail stood out. He looked so terrible that Kip threw the whole bag of rhino ribs down from the tree. "Help yourself, Wolfie." But Paleo Wolf did not care about dinner now. His mane bristled and ridged down his back. A long growl shook from his throat. It was his last warning. Kip opened his eyes very wide. He looked around, but he could not smell or hear or see anything. He whispered, "What do you know, wise wolf?" But Paleo Wolf was gone. There is great danger here, thought Kip. I must disappear too. And he shrank into the leafy branches and made himself very small. So I think Kip has kind of caught on to the pattern here, that when Paleo Wolf disappears, there's probably problems coming around the bend. Just in time, for high in the tree was the most fearsome of creatures, the saber-toothed cat. She crouched, she snarled, and then she sprang. She hurtled past Kip, hidden in the leaves, and pounced on a pile of woolly rhino bones down below. All that night, as he sat in the tree, Kip thought and thought. He shivered over Paleo Wolf's last warning. It had not been 1 second too soon. The next morning, Kip climbed down. There was Paleo Wolf looking for leftovers. Together, they looked at the spot where the bones had been, and they were very gloomy. Finally, Kip made a speech. He said, "Wolfie, If you will use your keen nose and your fine ears and your sharp eyes to keep me from being eaten up, I promise to share with you all the woolly rhino bones and even mammoth meat that I cook over my fire. When Kip saw that, he cried, "And I will call you dog," which means one who wags his tail. Do you see those fossils there? And look. See, dog is wearing a fossil now. Kip gave him a little collar, kind of. Then Kip, the cave boy, and the first dog went on home. And that is the end of our story. That was kind of interesting. I don't think it's a true story. I think somebody made that up and kind of filled in gaps and imagined what it was like when the first dog became the first dog. But that was a pretty cool take on it, don't you think? I think so too. So now we are going to get ready to make our very own fossil-like medallions. The first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and take out our clay from our bags. While we're getting this part of it ready, I want you guys to think about what color you want to make your little fossil medallion, okay? You don't have to flatten it yet, just kind of squeeze it and squish it in your hand. Now you're going to take it, you should have a clump in your hand, and you're going to start to roll it between your hand and make it into a ball. Then you're going to take your ball and you're either going to squish it in your hands and just make it flat. When you're done, you should just have something that's kind of like this. So we've got these puzzle pieces of dinosaur bones, and you can choose from those, or you can choose to use shells for your fossil. So I want you guys to figure out what you want to use. And in a moment, I'm going to have you guys come up and pick a couple of pieces of one or the other, okay? If you have a shell, you're going to take your shell and you're going to put it the face side down into your clay so that it makes the impression into the clay, okay? On a part of your fossil piece that has a nice edge where you're not going to go off the edge or it's not going to split with your hole, you're going to go far enough down and make a hole through your fossil piece. And you're going to go about halfway up with your paintbrush to make your hole big enough. Hi, I'm Miss Alene, and you're watching Kids Corner for Armstrong Cable, channels 20 and 100. I want to thank you guys for joining us today at Robinwood Lane Elementary with the 4th grade class, where we had a lot of fun talking about prehistoric dogs, funny dogs, and fossils. Join us next time. Until then, have fun.